Brought to you as a community service of Time Warner Cable. The views and opinions expressed on this program by the hosts and guests do not necessarily represent the views of Time Warner Cable.
One of the great motion picture stars in the 1940s and 50s was Betty Hutton. She went on, of course, to star at the London Palladium in Las Vegas in the 60s. She moved in her later years right here to Palm Springs and lived very quietly, almost as a recluse, quite different from the bombastic roles that she played on the screen and sang, and we watched in nightclubs as well. Carl Bruno became one of her close, in fact, one of her only close friends. And we are going to discuss this first lady of the screen who, despite her saucy on-screen roles, was very insecure. But first, this message about my favorite theater, the Camelot Theater. And of course, it's located at 2300 Baristo Road in Palm Springs. It is a theater that shows the finest of art and foreign films, some commercial films, some great documentaries. There really is no sense discriminating in the sense of choosing fine films than the Camelot. And if you go to the Camelot Theater, you can enjoy wonderful food in the Camelot Cafe, as well as great, cool libations upstairs in the Cinema Lounge. Cinema Lounge offers full-service bar, and it's only open Thursday through Sunday. But it's a great way to enjoy yourself in the bar, downstairs for the food, and best of all, to see the finest movies seen here in the Coachella Valley at the Camelot Theater in Palm Springs. For further information, call 325-6565. And incidentally, the premiere of Rain, that's Andrew Neiderman's book, which has been made into a film with Merv Griffin, Griffin Enterprises, will be on April 29th at the Camelot Theater. You can call there or call ACT for MS at 773-9806 for information about the premiere of Rain at the Camelot Theater, and afterward a wonderful reception at Spencer's Restaurant. Okay, our guest is Carl Bruno, and you were, as I said before, a great friend of Betty Hutton's.
Yes.
Before we talk about Betty and your friendship with her, which goes back a number of years, let's look at her, probably one of her very first film roles. And it was called, I think, The Stork Club.
The Stork Club.
And she sang a song, and she was so cute. Let's look at the early film of Betty Hutton.
See, I came totally unprepared. How about a little help from my quartet?
We'll be right up.
Okay, fellas, hit it. There's a doctor living in your town. There's a lawyer and an Indian, too. Neither doctor, lawyer, nor Indian chief could love you any more than I do. There's a barrel of fish in the ocean. There's a lot of little birds in the blue. And neither fish nor fowl, says the wise old owl, could love you any more than I do. No, 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 it couldn't be true that anyone else could love you like I do. I'm gonna warn all the dead-eyed dicks that you're the chick with the slickest tricks, and every tick of my ticker ticks for you. Follow through. Tell the doc to stick to his practice. Tell the lawyer to settle his case. Send the engine chief and his Tommy Hawk back to Little Rain in the face. 'Cause you know, no, no, it couldn't be true that anyone else could love you like I do.
Oh, she was adorable. Was that her first movie?
Yes. No, her first was Miracle of Morgan's Creek.
Oh, yeah. Okay. But she was so cute and bombastic.
Lots of energy.
And I was well aware when she moved down here that she was living here. Nobody saw her. You did, but she never seemed to go out anywhere. And here she had all these fans over all of these years. And yet, when I learned from you, and then watching her do an interview that was repeated after she died on Turner Classic, she did a wonderful interview, and she admitted that she was insecure.
Yeah, she did an interview with Robert Osborne.
Right, yeah.
And that is, according to Robert, that's the most requested interview on Turner. In all the interviews he did, that one is the most requested. And I think it's because she was so honest, and she bared her soul and told exactly what she was feeling. And toward the end of her life, she was very insecure, and she never really thought that people did still remember or love her. And it was very difficult for her. And our last outing was the Follies, and that was about 4 years ago. And Tony Martin was appearing there. And she and Tony Martin started at the Casa Mañana when she was like 16 or 18 years old. And she sent him the most beautiful top hat made out of flowers and a cane. It was just beautiful. We went backstage and they had a good meeting. We were bombarded. People were pulling on her and grabbing at her, and it was unbelievable.
Did they recognize her right away, or was it, I'm sure, knowing the way Riff Markowitz, who produces the Follies, he probably introduced that she was in the audience.
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
He introduced her, she got up, she took a bow, and when the show ended, people just started rushing us. And they had to take us out.
How did she feel about it? I mean, was she taken back by it, or did she suddenly turn on the charm that she had? Or was she shy?
I think she was frightened. She really, there were times when she was very charming, but it would have to be a one-on-one.
Yeah.
But in a group like that, where there were so many around us, and I've been in many situations with her in public where we were, bombarded by people, but this was really an enormous amount of people. I mean, half that theater came running to the front row, and they were pulling on her sleeve, and they had to take us out the side entrance.
Incredible, really, it is.
But that's her age group. A lot of the people there remember.
Right, and we were talking, and you mentioned how she went overseas during World War II, and was, of course, a great favorite with the GIs. And I guess she entertained, and you said you have beautiful letters that were read at the memorial from some of these
two of the GIs.
Yeah, and what it meant to them. And then, did you say you called or you heard from one of them after she died?
Well, we got 2 letters about a year and a half ago. In the same month, we received 2 letters from 2 different GIs. And in the letters, they sent some photos that they had of her actually on stage. And one of the GIs talked about they were very dirty, and they had to take a bath, and there was no water, and they were all naked, and they were bathing, and the Jeep drove by, and she was in the Jeep with the general, and they waved, and she looked at them, and she burst into laughter, and she blew them a kiss, and they continued to go on. Well, later on at the show, when she performed, they were sitting there, and there were planes flying overhead and bombs going off. And this GI said that it is the only story he tells his grandchildren, because he thought she was one of the greatest women in the world to be there in that situation.
And that was so many years ago. You have a photograph of Betty Hutton as she was shortly before she died, taken of you and Betty Hutton. There it is. It's on the
Right,
screen.
that was Christmas, and that was a year ago Christmas. That's
now
one of the
it's
last.
Interesting that on this picture, and I would think if you had her smiling, you would have made that one up. But she's not smiling at all, and yet she was always smiling, it seemed, on the screen.
Toward the end, she didn't really like photos taken of her. She really was unhappy with what she looked like. And in her mind, you have to understand that in her mind, if she were to see people, she would expect them to see a bouncing blonde jumping up and down and singing, and that wasn't her anymore. She couldn't do that anymore. and she didn't want to disappoint them.
Yeah. Well, when she was in Vegas, and I don't know because I don't know if you knew her then. You hadn't met her yet. You did.
Yeah, I met her in 1970.
Vegas, did she bounce up and down? I never saw her in person perform.
None of her shows were ever taped.
Isn't that awful?
They didn't video any of the shows.
Yeah.
And they were very successful, and she had a troupe of probably 50 people and suitcases. In fact, she tells a story about Judy going to perform there, Judy Garland. She was there for a week, and then it was New Year's Eve, and Judy was coming in. She'd just gotten home. They put the suitcases in the house, and Vegas called her, the hotel called and said, Judy's sick, she's in the hospital, can you come back? And she said to her mother, Mom, I'm so tired, they want us to come back. And her mother said, ask them for $100,000 a night. And so she got back on the phone and she says, all right, I'll come back, but I want $100,000 a night. She was getting $100 a week. So they said, how long will it take you to get here? And she said, what? And they said, how long? Put everything right back on the plane, and within 2 hours they were back there.
She probably was the first one to get the $100,000. I mean, that later became what they were paying around that time, but she was probably
one of the first female
absolutely.
entertainers.
We are going to return to you in a second, and I think perhaps we're going to see either before or after the break a little thing called Rumble Rumble that she did that's so cute.
Smiling by now with my heart on the mend, but when I try, something in that heart says no. You're still there. I wish I didn't love you so.
Not aware that I have been deaf in my right ear since I was 10 years old, and I came to advanced hearing. And boy, am I glad I did. It is the cutest little thing you've ever seen. There it is. They are the best. I want you to know that I'm not being paid for saying this. It's just a fact. They are the best.
Advanced Hearing Systems in the Las Palmas Shopping Center, Highway 111 at Bob Hope, 341-9619.
Hey, do you know Rumble?
Yeah, number 16, boys. What key?
I don't know. Just one ain't too high. I gotta move. I gotta move. That's what I tell my landlord. Landlord? I gotta move. Now there's a man lives right upstairs from me, making a nightmare of some melody. This is a situation not likely to improve. He goes a rumble, rumble, rumble on the left hand side. He goes a tinkle, tinkle, tinkle on the right. Rumble, 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 tinkle, 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 plays piano all night. He goes a rumble, rumble.
That is so cute. That's the Rumble, Rumble, Rumble. Before that, and of course this to me is typical of Betty Hutton, that personality. But I Wish I Didn't Love You So, which we left our set and went out with before the break. That song is so beautiful, and I never think of her, that she really had a lovely voice and really sang serious love songs and did it so beautifully.
She did a lot of them, and she had a record contract, and in fact, she still gets residuals for some of the music that she did in the 50s, 40s, and 50s.
You told me that song was a #1 at one time.
#1 song. Yeah, she had a lot of big hits.
Well, now with the residuals, who gets the money?
She left a will and a trust. Everything comes to me. She left the book rights, the movie rights, the music rights, everything to me. Yeah, you know, we were friends for 35 years, and I'm her only contact with the outside world. So, and you know, we fought to do this because I didn't want to do this, and she insisted, and so
You
we
mean the
got
book that you're now working on?
No, the will.
Oh,
because there was not much there to put in a will. And I said, why do you want to do this? And she said, because there are certain things I want when I die, and I know that you're going to abide by my wishes. And so we paid an attorney to come in, and it made her happy and made her be able to relax and not have to worry about what happens. She didn't want a circus and a big freak show. That was very important.
Well, you didn't.
to
You had
her.
a very dignified memorial down here. Were you surprised at the turnout of
No.
people?
I expected maybe a couple of hundred people. We probably had between 400 and 500 because we printed 400 cards and every one of them went.
That's amazing. It really is, because she was out of the limelight for so many years. Of course, Turner and all of those, you know, the channels that play the long time ago movies play her all the time.
Yeah.
And after she died, really, you know, like resurrecting this wonderful interview that she gave. What made her so insecure? You think of a person becoming famous, and I'm sure as a young girl, oh, if I'm famous and I'll be a great star and I'll have everything. But she didn't. She had nothing. Because she was unhappy.
She never, ever was happy in her personal life. She was very happy in her professional life, but her personal life always seemed to wind up in disaster. And whether it's because of marriages, the wrong men. I know in the very beginning, when she first went to Hollywood and she was very young, she was in love with a man who was married. And he was at Paramount at the same time. And they were very much in love, but he would not leave his wife. And at that point, she said to me many times, that was the one love in her life.
Yeah. Well, you know, another thing that was certainly a tribute to Betty Hutton was the longtime friends who came down for the memorial, such as A.C. Lyles, who has been at Paramount forever as an executive and as a producer.
Great man.
Yeah, and he's now 89, and I think he's still handsome. He's still debonair and dashing.
Exactly.
And he spoke about Betty and Betty the performer. And maybe we can roll that, because we do have that from the memorial, A.C. Lyles talking about Betty Hutton.
The line, but she says, you stay on the line. And I said, Betty, how are you? She said, I'm angry at you. And I said, what's the matter, Betty? She said, well, I just want you to know I was remembering something. When I was the biggest star at Paramount, I proposed to you and you turned me down. Damn you, why did you turn me down? I said, Betty, I was a bright kid. And she said, why did you turn me down? She says, I was never temperamental. I was never difficult. Was I ever difficult? I said, Betty, honey, no. You were never difficult. Impossible, yes. But never difficult.
I love that.
That's great, isn't it?
And of course, she did have a reputation for being difficult.
Yes, she did.
Well, he, you know, was interesting because he spoke about who was the man that brought her to Paramount.
Buddy DeSilva.
Buddy DeSilva. And according to A.C. Lyles, Buddy DeSilva knew how to control her. And once he left, that was it.
He had a stroke, and when he became ill, he couldn't speak. She had no one to tell her what to do, how to do it. She was in a Broadway show with Ethel Merman and Panama Hattie, and she had a great number in that. And they opened out of town in Boston, and her number was a huge success. When they opened in New York, Ethel Merman cut the number.
Oh, isn't
And
that?
Buddy DeSilva was producing the show, and he actually said, Betty went to him and said, you can't do that. That's the only number I have in the show, and it's great. And he said, I'm sorry, we have to do it. That's what she wants. And Betty said, well, then I quit. And Buddy said, I'm going to tell you something nobody knows. I'm going to run Paramount in a year. And if you stick with this show for 1 year, I will take you to Paramount and I'll make you a star.
And how amazing that it ended up that Betty Hutton played the role that Ethel Merman played and created on the stage in Annie, Get Your Gun.
Right, that was amazing, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
and then Betty Hutton did it on the screen. But she was not happy doing that. It was amazing to me. And you told me that. I don't remember, Carl, whether that was on the interview.
She said
And
it broke
Turner,
her heart.
Yeah, because she claimed she wasn't treated well, and yet Howard Keel spoke beautifully about her.
A lot of people have, and in her mind, I think because she replaced Judy Garland,
Yeah.
she seemed to think that they really wanted Judy, and when she came into this, they weren't excited about her. All she did really say to me was there were a lot of times on the set when you do a great number and everyone claps and screams, and she said that she never got that on that set. They just turned around and walked away.
She was just fantastic. We don't have it now, but when I interviewed Howard, and I had Howard here a couple of times, and each time, because it's so good, I used the clip of I Can Do Anything Better Than You with Howard and Betty just belted it out.
Yeah, that was a great movie, and they were terrific in it, both of them.
It really was, as was The Greatest Show on Earth. We are going to return to you, Carl Bruno, and talk a little more about Betty Hutton after these messages.
I'm Nicholas Snow with NotesFromHollywood.com, coming to you live from another fabulous entertainment event. I've teamed up with Conversations with Gloria Greer and Time Warner Cable to bring you the latest adventures in the world of entertainment. Go to Notes from Hollywood to put your business in the VIP room, become a Hollywood insider, visit the inmates in the paparazzi prison, or add your own event to our coming attractions section. It's all happening now at NotesFromHollywood.com. Are you ready for your close-up?
Welcome to the magnificent Palm Springs Air Museum, located at the Palm Springs Airport, only minutes from the center of town, just off the 10 freeway at the Gene Autry exit. For group reservations and schedules, please call 760-778-6262. Experience the exciting history of aviation at the Palm Springs Air Museum.
You don't have to be a star, but lots of stars go to Valoris. The Valoris in Palm Springs on Tuckwitz, oh, it is so wonderful, wonderful restaurant, wonderful food, really delicacies, marvelous, wonderful first courses, wonderful entrees, wonderful desserts, and of course it's a great place to go for luncheon as well as dinner, and they have marvelous Sunday brunches. The Valoris in Palm Springs with the most romantic ambiance anywhere, I think. Don't you?
Yes, go there all the time. Food is excellent.
It is always
and wonderful ambiance.
Yeah, it is the best. All right, now here was Betty Hutton, a great star and yet insecure, finally found her way with religion. Why do you think she was so insecure?
I think in her life, because her personal life was so difficult and her children, raising her children, she had the notoriety and her children didn't, and because of probably things that happened later on in life, she had never had a father, and when she met Father McGuire, that was the father that she never had.
Had she been Catholic before?
No.
But
No,
then she became
wasn't.
Catholic.
She became Catholic. And she was actually in a rehab center, and Father was there visiting.
Was she rehab for drugs or for alcohol?
For drugs. For drugs. A lot of people think of Betty as an alcoholic. Betty was not an alcoholic. Betty had a severe drug problem. And at different times in her life, she was in institutions. And this one time in New York, she had left L.A. and went to New York to do something. She got in trouble there and set eyes on Father McGuire. And the first time their eyes met, it was instant.
Yeah. And so then he helped her tremendously. Didn't she live?
She lived at the rectory and did the cooking and the cleaning.
That's incredible. That is just amazing.
Every front page of the newspaper all over. And she was happy doing that. Betty loved to cook and take care of people. She really enjoyed that.
Now, how did you meet Betty? How did you become such close friends?
That goes back to the 70s when everything was falling apart for her. She lost everything. And her last...
Was that through her marriage?
Yes. All of the husbands got a little bit of her. And managers and bad decisions and drugs, which you know, she lost control. And I had a friend, Gene Arnaz Jr., who was a minister, and he was ministering in one of the churches, the Pentecostal churches in L.A. And he called. He was my partner at that time, and he called and said, there's a lady here that I met, and she was just thrown out of a hotel because she couldn't pay the rent.
Oh, how sad.
And they want me to take her home, and she needs help. There's a drug problem. Is that okay? And I said, sure. And up the driveway they come, and she gets out of the driveway, and there's this little frail lady with a shopping bag, and that's all she had was one shopping bag.
Oh, my.
And she had those old leather coats in the 70s with the fur collars, and it was all crackled and torn.
Oh.
And that's it. For the next 5 years, she was with us.
Yeah.
Like family.
Yeah, and her children, she never sees her children at all. Never heard from them, never came to the funeral, never contacted you.
No, never. She loved them dearly, and there are a lot of things that she didn't understand, and I can't say anything bad about them. They have to deal with whatever happened, but my experience with them was not very good, and they hurt her a great deal. And I don't know, I felt like her protector many times.
I guess they resented that she was on the road, when she later was on the road, that she was a star and could not be with them as much as maybe other parents were with their children. But still, you have to try to understand
I know, especially when someone is in their 80s.
Now, you are going to write a book.
Right.
You know, we were going to look at a clip of her today, but I think if we close up the show and look at that clip over the credits, we could talk about her a little longer if we could. Tell me about the book, because she was so private. That how did she feel about a book?
Well, in the 70s, when we first met and she came to live with us, at that point there were a lot of people trying to get a book written. And she had no money at that time. Things were really bad for her. And Bob Hope helped her a lot, and Dolores Hope helped her a lot. They were wonderful to her. She started writing a book. We would sit at the kitchen table and write every day, 5 days a week, and put this together about her life. And she started at her birth, about her mother being an alcoholic and a bootlegger, and all the problems that they had and she had growing up.
Amazing, amazing.
And the background is incredible, where she came from and what she achieved.
I can't believe that we've run out of time.
Oh, okay.
Carl, I want to thank you. When the book comes out, you come back again.
I sure
And I know
will.
it's gone to a publisher, and we are going to go out looking at the glamorous, beautiful Betty Hutton.
Thank you, Gloria.
In Paris.
Thank you.
And I quote, I came to Paris to buy me a gown. To Paris, and oh, what a town. The lights were shining, the music was gay. I bought me my gown and decided to stay. Now, Papa, don't preach to me, Papa, don't preach to me. Let my heart break while it's young. Now, Papa, don't preach to me, Papa, don't preach to me. Let me fling till my fling is all flung. I don't see Paris, not like with Pierre. That X marks my room, but I'm seldom up there. I stroll through Paris today with Maurice. The Rue de la Paix means the street of the peace. Now, Papa, don't preach to me, Papa, don't preach to me. Let my heart break if it must. Now, Papa, don't preach to me, Papa, don't preach to me.